This is Tanya Lynn with the Sistership Circle podcast. From spirituality, sexuality, and sisterhood to business, relationships, contribution, and creativity, the Sistership Circle podcast introduces a new model of feminine leadership where women get real and vulnerable about it all. Tune in for authentic advice that will empower you to be bold, beautiful, and brilliant as your true self.
Hello, sisters. I'm Tanya Lynn, the founder of Sistership Circle, and I have a very important conversation today for us to have, and that is that we as women cannot rise up without our men. And I've actually dedicated 2 chapters to partnership with men and honoring the masculine in my book, which I have right here, Open Your Heart, How to Be a New Generation Feminine Leader. Because this is absolutely critical to our success in the rise of the divine feminine. It's not about shifting from patriarchy to matriarchy. It's not about women leaving men behind. It's not about bashing the men. It's not about dissing the masculine. There's actually nothing wrong with the masculine. And I think that we need to have this conversation because this really truly is about harmony. It's about unity. It's about coming together in sacred partnership. And this is about our relationship with our men, but it's also about our inner relationship with our inner masculine. And I have so much to say on this topic. I could talk for hours on this topic, and I just feel so strongly about it. So I think the best place for me to start is to talk about my own relationship, which is actually why I have decided to do this Facebook Live today. And that is, this week is my beloved husband, Brent's birthday. So his birthday is August 31st, this Friday. And for those of you who do not know Brent, he is actually part of Sistership Circle. So he has left his job, or actually his business. He kind of still does it on the side, but he has gone all in 100% as my business partner in Sistership Circle. Not everyone knows this. He does not like to come out and be seen. He's definitely a behind the scenes type of guy, but he is a huge pillar. He is the backbone. He is part of the masculine support. And he really demonstrates how the divine masculine serves the divine feminine. So I feel like I have a lot to offer in this conversation, being in a sacred partnership, having an incredible relationship with a man who is dedicated to serving the feminine, and who has, he has so much to offer this movement that we're doing. And I'm so present right now to that we cannot do this alone. And so there's a couple different pieces here that I want to talk about. I'd love to share a little bit about our story, but I also want to talk about some of the steps that I've gotten to of being able to call in this type of partnership, how you can create this. There are some of you who are watching who deeply desire a sacred partnership with a man, like a really healthy relationship with a man. Some of you may want to be in partnership with a man who you work with or not. Some of you may completely hate men and have been deeply wounded by men, have a disconnect with your inner masculine, have trouble in your current marriage, do not feel fulfilled, do not feel seen, understood, supported. So I just, for a second, before we even dive in, to just really honor the full spectrum of the women in our tribe and all of the ways in which we have relationship with the masculine, with men, and to really honor all of it. Like, it's all okay. And it really, I want to let everyone know that there's nothing wrong if you're not in a partnership and you want one. There's nothing wrong if you're in a terrible partnership or relationship. It doesn't matter if you're divorced or you're lesbian. Like, this is for all of us. And I think it's really important work that whether or not we want to have a relationship with a man, whether or not you want to get married, is irrelevant to this conversation. This conversation is about us doing the healing work as women within ourselves so that we are integrated in both our masculine and feminine, which is what feminine leadership is all about. It's not simply just being in our feminine power. It's about that integration piece. And this is about us creating sacred space for the men in the world to rise up with us, to not leave our brothers behind. So if you could just, for a moment, just feel into that and find out where you are and honoring where you're at on the spectrum of, yes, I freaking love men, I'm in an incredible, juicy relationship, to I cannot stand men, I think they should all be shot and burned. So just like honoring the full spectrum, because we've got someone in that full range in our tribe here. And so that's really the first step, is just like noticing and having awareness of where you're currently at. And wherever you're at in the spectrum, we want to have every woman on this planet, just as we want every woman to feel a sense of belonging in sisterhood, to also feel compassion and love towards men. This doesn't mean that you have to be friends with them. This does not mean you need to be married to them. It does not mean that you necessarily even need to like them, but that we can hold them in our heart of, we cannot do this alone and we need the men to rise up with us. So, and with that said, the way I envision this is, there was a point when I came to this place in the road with Tribal Truth, because I was always doing women's work. And then I created this event called Honoring the Masculine. And Honoring the Masculine, there was a circle of women. We were all dressed in white, and we invited the men to sit in the middle of our sacred circle. And we held space as we listened to them share about what it means to be a man today. And we heard it all. We heard some very empowered men. We heard some men who were very disempowered. We heard men who were confused, men who were in their warrior, men who were in their lover. Like, we really got to see the full spectrum of man. And it was beautiful. And we all like really felt a deep, deep love and compassion for men after that. It was extremely healing. And that's kind of what I see as the pathway for us as women. We as women must gather in sisterhood, in sacred circle together, just us women, so that we can create that bond and heal the sisterhood wound and love one another and really see every woman as our sister. That's the work that we must do. That's what I'm dedicated to, is that every single woman feels like she's part of the collective sisterhood. And then there's a place for us as women to invite men into our temple, into our sacred circle. And then men obviously have to do their own work as well, gathering as men, as brotherhood. So I think there's we have to have all of those. We have to have just women gathering. We need to have men and women gathering together and men gathering separately. And it's the same thing in my relationship, where Brent right now is on his little solo backpack trip. He's hiking Mount Whitney, the tallest mountain in the US, continental US, not Alaska. He's doing that solo, and then I do my stuff solo. And then there's times when we come together. So for his birthday, I'm actually going to go pick him up, and we're going to go and spend our time together. And then we have family time. And I think that this creates a balance. And we can then have our own sovereignty, right? Separately, like by us coming together in sisterhood, we claim our sovereignty as women. We come into a place of self-love, self-acceptance, self-care. And then we can come into right relationship with men. This is so important, right? So I think for me, I am surrounded by so many incredible, powerful men. Like, my father is incredible. My brother is doing the work. He's now teaching breath work. He came actually and did a breath work session at Feminine Uprising Live. My husband is a very empowered man. All of his friends, like, I have surrounded myself by conscious, empowered, beautiful men. And so I know that they are out there. I have proof that they are out there. And actually, my intention for Feminine Uprising Live 2019 is to create an Honoring the Masculine event in the evening time, to invite all my amazing conscious men to come and be part of it, so that the women who come to Feminine Uprising Live can have that visceral experience of, oh, this is what, yes, there are good men out there. Oh, this is what it's like to meet face to face with a conscious, empowered man, right? So, they are out there. They exist. So if you're jaded by men, if you've been wounded by men, I just want you to know that incredible men do exist. And there are a lot of men who are and want to do the work. So the first thing is for us to shift our perception that whatever we say that men are stupid, men can't keep up with us, they're, they don't want to do the work, and then the poor, like, oh, poor men, they're so, right? We have this conversation that we have about men, that they're just not as good as us, because we're trying to compare them to our ideal woman. And they're never going to compete. So, like, can we get that a conscious man is nothing like a conscious woman? And we don't want men to be like us. We want them to be men. We want them to be more in their masculine. We want them to be integrated with their feminine. But we want men to be in their essence, which is masculine, right? Just as we want to be in our feminine essence. So first we must shift our listening of men altogether. Like, really shifting how we think about men, how we listen to men. And so we want to start listening for men how are doing the work. Men want to grow and change. They want to show up and support and serve the feminine. They do. Deep down, they do. And if you are thinking, well, my man doesn't, right? Like, my man is so unconscious. He's so, like, every man in his DNA wants to provide, protect, and procreate. That's the design of man. Which is why they can be so obsessed with sex, right? But they really, truly want to show up and provide. So can you start to listen to your man and the men in your life as that they want to provide for you? And how can you allow them to contribute? How can you allow your man to contribute? How can you allow your father to contribute, your brother to contribute, your friend, your husband, your boyfriend, your ex-husband, your ex-boyfriend? Men just want to provide. Can we create the space? Can we allow them to contribute to us? It is so freaking hard for us to do. And I know this to be true because if I look at the first year of my marriage, when Brent and I were working together, but he was like half in, half out, and I did not value his contribution at all. I was like, I am better off without him helping me. And so I actually kicked him out of the business. This was in October 2016. I was like, bye-bye, like, go back and do your own thing because you're just a nuisance. You're in my way. You're holding me back. Like, I don't want to have anything to do with you. I could not allow him to provide his strengths and his gifts to Sistership Circle. And we struggled back then. There was a tipping point, a turning point in January 2017. And in April, right at Feminine Uprising Live, he came back in. And I saw him clearly. I really, truly saw him clearly. I saw that he wanted to provide. And I saw the gifts and the strengths that he had that I did not. And I opened myself up to receive his contribution. And this was it. I mean, literally, like, this changed everything. Not only did it change our relationship and have us really, truly come into sacred partnership and sacred business partnership and teamwork. And now we work so well together. But Sistership Circle has literally taken off in the past year and a half as a result of me finally allowing him to contribute and provide his strengths. And we work seamlessly together now. I'm blown away by first year versus this year, how we work together. It is beautiful. And I am so grateful for his contribution. Like, I am bursting with love and gratitude for how he shows up. But guess what? He shows up because I create the space and the listening for that. That's why he shows up so powerfully. That's how we lift up and empower our men. By how we listen to them, how we open our hearts to them. So we need to stop the blaming and the shaming and the they're doing this and this wrong and my man's an asshole and my man can't do this and he's incompetent and he's incapable and he's unconscious and all of that. We need to stop that language because our word creates our world. So if we're continuing to talk badly about our men, they're never going to be able to show up for us. I know this to be true from my experience. I'm speaking really truly from my own experience of how I have stepped into this true, beautiful, sacred partnership with my man. And, you know, thank you, ladies, for this is wisdom. That's exactly right. They're not the enemy. Yes, yes. Thank you. You're with me. Okay. So, and here's the thing. If you know the background of our story, then I'm going to repeat it right now. But I think it's actually really brilliant if you hear our path. So Brent and I met online. I was in the middle of my healing process with mother and father wound. I met him 3 weeks before I was coming out with my book, Open Your Heart. First edition. This is actually second edition. We went to sushi. And I come in there and I'm like, yeah, I'm about to publish my book. And I'm just like, he's just kind of like this, like totally shrinking back. And he was completely intimidated by me, right? And then the next day, we end up talking and I'm like, I don't know, he's nice, I guess, And then we somehow decided that we were going to go hike the next day. And that's his thing. Like he backpacks. He's on a mission to, for the next 4 years, hike from Mexico to Canada on the Pacific Crest Trail. Right now he's hiking Mount Whitney. Like backpacking, hiking is his thing. And so I got to see him the next day totally in his confident element. I was like, oh yeah, like he's in his masculine. He's like in his power. So anyway, I mean, literally from that day, we were pretty much inseparable, and then got pregnant 3 months later. And when he came to my book launch, he said, I see what you're doing and I want to support you. So we were like all in from the beginning. But then it's like, I get pregnant. We barely know each other. The first time I met his sister, I'm like, hi, I'm Tanya. Nice to meet you. I'm pregnant. It was just like total whirlwind. And, most people, a lot of my friends who got pregnant right after meeting their man, like, don't make it. Right? Like, the reality is that we were pretty much like in an arranged marriage. And at the beginning, I was like, I have no idea how I'm going to make this work. He's unconscious. He's not as evolved as I am. He's not doing his sacred work in the world, right? Like all this comparison of thinking that he needed to show up a certain way and he needed to somehow like be like me. And, and it's like we're thrown into our relationship with pregnancy, trying to make this business work, working together, living in a 1-bedroom apartment, like decided to get married 6 months after or 7 months after we had Callie, my first. And it was just like we were thrown in to the deep end, and there were times when we honestly did not think we were going to make it. Like we had some really, really challenging times. We didn't know each other, but we made it work. And I think a lot of that is because I continued to shift my listening. And I continued to do my own inner work. So I think some of the pieces are that if you want a relationship with a conscious man, a conscious masculine man, which looks different than a conscious woman, right? It's not the same. This is a big thing. And we don't want them to be like us. We want them to be like themselves. That in order to have a relationship, a conscious relationship with a conscious man, we must do our inner work around our inner masculine. And we must look at our own father wound. Our father wound is our relationship with our father, biological or whoever raised you. It's also our relationship with the patriarchy. And the more that we can shift that and come into our own sovereignty, come into our self-authority, that's shifting our relationship with the patriarchy, strengthening our own inner masculine, which is coming into being able to take action, feeling purpose driven, having a mission that you're called, that you're standing for, right? Integrating your own masculine and feminine, and then doing that work to really forgive your own father and to see what did you learn from your own father. What did your father teach you about work? What did your father teach you about money? What did your father teach you about relationship? And to heal that wound of where there was a disconnect for you and your father. For me, I was daddy's girl, and daddy provided everything for me. I was very, very privileged. My father was successful. But the piece that like everything was taken care of for me. So daddy was going to save me. So I had to let go of looking for a man who was going to show up like my father and provide me all the money, everything that I needed. So I was constantly the damsel in distress, waiting for my knight in shining armor, my dad, to come and save me. I had to let go of that to then be able to come into conscious partnership with Brent, because Brent was never going to fulfill on that. And because, yeah, he can't save me, right? And so I was like, I kept not fully stepping into my power the first year of our relationship with Sistership Circle, because I was waiting for him to like do it for me or to save me or for him to, like all these things. I had to heal that within myself. So each one of you has your own relationship with your father and how you showed up with him, what he taught you, And that it's going to be different depending on where your father was at on the spectrum, right? But that we have to heal that. And then something opens up and we can start to have relationship with men with the masculine. And we can come from a place of true love and compassion and forgiveness for our fathers, and then continue to reflect that to all the men around us. And then further out to all the men in the world, even the ones that, we think are evil, right? We can still come from a place of like fierce love with them. So, yeah, I think that feels, for the most part, complete. I think it's so important. And I had some women, saying, we're really struggling in our relationship. And I know a lot of women are wondering how I do it. How do I have a relationship with my husband? And I would say we're more in love than ever. I would say we're at a really strong part. We're in, I believe all relationships go like this, right? We come together, we have strong points, and then we kind of drift apart, and then we come back together. So the important part is, can we bring ourselves back together in those points of disconnection? It's expansion, contraction, just like the breath, expansion, contraction. Our lives, we're constantly in the up and down relationship, up and down, expand, contract. So we want to look at, how do we keep bringing ourselves back together? That's the consciousness. The consciousness is there's going to be times when we split, times when we come back together. Right now we're in this. We're super tight. And we know what to do when we come out, right? It usually means that something's off. We're out of alignment with ourselves. So can I come back into alignment with myself? Is my self-care working? Is my exercise working? Am I in right relationship with my work, with the kids, whatever, So it's like I have to focus on me, and then what do I need to clean up with him? And what do I need to forgive? And a big piece, I believe, is because we're constantly doing work on our relationship. We have, while we were pregnant, before summer, my second, we did 3 months of intense couples counseling to clear out a lot of stuff and to come into more intimacy with one another. We continue to see that therapist, I would say every 2 months, for like a cleaning, like a checkup, right? To just get back, if anything's off, like really off, and we're way out here, we go have someone help us. There's nothing wrong with that, right? And then there's things where we do like couples, retreats, and we said we want to do something together. So whether that's we have to have date night together, we have to go on a retreat together, we need to do a vacation, like just me and him, not the kids. And I see a lot of women who really struggle with that. The other thing is we're really working on our sex life. I'm doing a lot of inner work. If you've read my post about Avalon, a lot of inner work around my sacred sexuality, and like both intimacy, which is separate from sex, the two, like we're constantly working on. So those are some of the things that we're doing to really make sure that we continue to be in a loving, conscious relationship. And, it's like, it's not easy when you're working together, you're in a loving relationship with each other, and you're parenting together. All three, it's a lot. So, there's a lot that we have to hold and take care of. And a lot of that is up to us as women. So to look at it as like sacred responsibility, not a burden responsibility, but like it is. I've taken that on of like, that's my role in the relationship, is to take on sacred responsibility for making sure that our relationship is clean and integrity, that we're connected. And he said that to me, I need less connection than you, Tanya. I'm a man. If you want connection, you bring us together. Or you tell me how to. You tell me how to show up, right? And I resisted that for a while. And now it's like, yeah, no, that is my sacred responsibility, not my burden. But yeah, if I'm committed to this, that's what I'm going to take on. And there's things that he's accountable for. Those are his strong suits. So as women, this is something we're really good at, is holding that and then inviting our men in. It's kind of like we're the flower, right? The flower blossoms and blooms and the bee comes and takes her, sucks her nectar. So we have to invite the men in. It's part of what it means to be a woman. Okay, so if you have any questions, anything, I'd love to hear from you. I will come back and check the comments. Thank you so much for tuning in. This was a hot topic for me. Very excited to share this with you. And again, ask any questions and I'm happy to continue to keep this conversation going.